This time on Rad Rad Comics, we talk about the Hypno Hustler, my favorite Spider-Man villain. Welcome back to Rad Rad Comics, a channel where I read all kinds of really terrible comic books, and I share the best of those with you. Today we are reading the Spectacular Spider-Man number 24, which is the first appearance of the Hypno Hustler, which is just as good as it sounds like it's going to be. He's a disco-themed villain. This issue came out in 1978, and it's great. Let's jump into it. Okay, we'll breeze past the first part. Peter Parker is in the subway, and he has to stop some bad guys when they go through a tunnel so that no one knows that he's Spider-Man. He gets home exhausted, tired, thinking about his Aunt May, who's in the hospital at this point, and he walks home to... Surprise! Huh? Welcome home, Peter. You're just in time for your ungraduation party. We're all going dancing. Oh, hey gang, that's just swell. Come on, Bookworm, we've got a table reserved at the Beyond Forever Disco. Huh? But that's fancy, Flash. I don't even own a suit, let alone a tuxedo. Oh, Harry's taking care of that, Pete. It sounds as if Peter is in pain, Mrs. Leeds. He's just not used to getting dressed up, Shashan, and the name's Betty, maiden name Brant. Flash tells me you have a boyfriend, Holly. Couldn't he make it tonight? Hector and I haven't been getting along, Liz. Listen, the shouting stopped. They must be coming out. And, ta-ta, a regular John Travolta. I've never felt so ridiculous in all my life. Don't any of you have any sympathy? You're dooming me to 6 more months as an undergraduate. All right, I can see my plea is falling on deaf ears. Let's go and get this over with. That's taking it on the chin, Pete. Well, what are we waiting for? Okay, so what's going on in the story at this point is Peter was going to graduate from college, then he missed his gym class or something like that, and so he didn't graduate. Then he decided to just go back and study more and get a higher degree or something like that. I don't think they ever wanted Peter to get out of school. It has to be part of something else that can go wrong in his life. But one thing I was thinking about is very recently in the current Spider-Man run, number 56 or somewhere around that point, they're talking about this kind of stuff, the times when they all used to go out, and the bad guy in the current storyline that just ended is Harry Osborn. And so he's talking about oh, I felt so left out when you guys all went out without me and stuff like that. He's talking about this this era and before as if it still happened. So the current Peter Parker in 2021 is 30 years old or so, something like that, right? And yet he can remember dressing up in a tux like John Travolta and going to a disco in the 70s. That still happened in the world of Spider-Man, I'm pretty sure, which makes this story a lot more interesting. But anyway, let's get back to it. It's kind of crowded, Betty. Can't we just go to a movie? Peter, why do you try to act like such a dud? Who's acting? And inside the glittering ballroom, gee, we're not as dressed up as I thought. Forget style, let's fight our way to a table before we get hustled on. Hi, are you tourists? What would you like to drink before dinner? 6 Cokes and a Pepsi Light. You mean as mixers? You don't want anything in them? Do you have ice? Pete, look, isn't that Mary Jane? Hi. Fancy meeting you here, Mr. Parker, since I phoned all last night trying to invite you to go with me. Oh, Peter, I'm sorry. I hope Mary Jane doesn't think... Forget it, Betty. We're here to have a good time, right? Let's dance before I die laughing. Okay, so him and his really cool friends go out and they order Cokes and a Pepsi. What kind of place has both? But yeah, and they see Mary Jane there by accident. So they're kind of together, but kind of not really. He's also kind of with Betty, who is separated from her husband, but not divorced. And it's a whole conundrum as to whether he's going to date Betty. Whatever, that doesn't matter in this story. And as a less than ecstatic Peter Parker tries to make the best of a bad situation on the dance floor, allow us to conduct you backstage to the manager's office, where the Beyond Forever's proprietor has just discovered that his proceeds are being pilfered by Hustler. What are you doing back? My safe! Looks like you caught me dead to rights, Bernie. Why, you hoodlum! Give me a chance, Bernie, you said. Let me play Beyond Forever, you said. Ingrate, I paid your expenses, got you publicity, and this is how you pay me back? What more do you want from me? I want everything, Bernie. I want it all. And as the Hypno Hustler, I got the power to take it. Look into my eyes, Bernie. No, I can't think. dizzy. That music. Go with the flow, Bernie. The song's called Blood from a Stone, man. And you're just the first to get squeezed penniless by my mesmerizing melodies. No. Oh yeah, Bernie, you took me off the streets, and I thank you for that. But this disco dude's got plans. And if it takes some grand larceny supplementing my music to put me over the top, well, I can dig it. Sorry it had to be you, Bernie. Okay. So it's very important that we clarify what his powers are because they change on the last page, I'm pretty sure. So he has goggles that do the swirly thing that hypnotizes people. And he's got some music that supplements it. We'll learn more about that in a second. And he's doing crimes because he has some plans. I don't know if we ever see more of his plans, but he's got plans, but he can use his hypnotism to force people to do stuff. But the proprietor here, I don't know if they said his name, he's like in pain by this. He's not being hypnotized, like, being convinced to do something by suggestion or whatever. So I don't know. He's just got some kind of mental control. Don't worry about it. Should we keep singing, Hustler? No, my lacy ladies, your hypnotic rendition of my music has accomplished its purpose. It was disco magic the day I discovered that the soothing sibilance of little-known backup band called the Mercy Killers perfectly complemented my mind-numbing hypnotic abilities. We are inseparable, dear ladies. And tonight, we clean up. Having a good time, Betty? What? Oh, I'm sorry, Peter. I was just thinking of Ned. Swell. Her thoughts are on her husband, who's still in Paris. Well, I can't get my mind off Mary Jane. How does my life get so complicated? Here comes the main attraction. Welcome to Beyond Forever, brothers and sisters. Now get down the beat with our special live show, the Hypno Hustler and his Mercy Killers. The music is loud, incessant. It washes out over the dance floor in waves of sound. It carries with it the will, the consciousness of the dancers. Hey, something's going on here. And recedes with the subtle insistence of the ebbing tide. Flash, Liz, Harry? Hey, people, this is some kind of joke. But a joke it most definitely is not. It's the music. It's mesmerizing them, guiding their movements. I haven't felt anything this strong since Mindworm. Gotta fight it. But even as Pete resists, all others on the dance floor succumb to the will-sapping performance of the Hypno Hustler. And look at this guy's face right here. Feels like this is kind of a painful thing for him to do. And what is he playing? Is that a guitar? It's gotta be, right? Music, the hustler's voice, flashing lights, everything contributes to the hypnotic effect. It's almost overpowering. Gotta use the dancers as cover, get out of sight, and into costume before it hooks me as well. I'll borrow a trick from Ulysses and stuff balled up webbing into my ears to cut out the sound. Okay. So Peter Parker is dancing at the disco, and he feels the hypnotic energies from the lights and the music and the goggles and all that kind of stuff. And so the first thing he does is, oh no, I better change clothes to see how Spider-Man would fare against hypnotism. Like, he doesn't plug his ears first. He gets dressed in his Spider-Man costume and then plugs up his ears. Like, I'm just picturing, he's at a disco. There's a band performing. There's the group performing up there. Everyone else is silent and just like this. And he's on the floor, like, ripping off his clothes. I think that would have drawn a little bit of attention. But don't worry about it. It didn't. He's fine. Then we'll see how Spider-Man fares against the Hypno Hustler. Ah, fair ladies and gents, so glad you could come tonight. You're already grooving on my first set, a little tune called Sweet Surrender. So I don't think you'll mind if the ladies and I take a little break. To relieve you of your hard-earned cash. You may proceed, ladies. I think our guests will be only too happy to cooperate. Moving swiftly amongst the assembled revelers, the Mercy Killers divest them of their wallets, purses, and jewelry. When, okay, I've seen enough. You're a crook, Hustler, with an interesting angle, but the party's over. Spider-Man, you can't stop me, not now. I can't hear him, but I can imagine the spiel. Every villain thinks he's special, but I've got news for you, pal. You're all the same. I had to pause here for a second. He can't hear him, okay? And so when facing a black villain, the first thing Spider-Man says to him is, "You're all the same." Risky. Luckily, it worked in context, but he didn't know that. "Wrong, wall crawler. The Hustler's different from anyone you've ever fought." Yow! "I'm all new, unique, and I got the obligation to the gang in Corona Park to keep on keeping on." I think he's about to make a point. "I spent months rigging this suit up special, Bug Eyes. Bleeds from his boots. If he connects, it'll look like I've gone through a Vegematic. Imagine, the world's only sliced and diced superhero. What the? How'd you move so fast?" "Ha, maybe he'll get stuck in the floor." No such luck, the blades retracted at the last second. "Hustler, don't be a chump. This can only end one way. You sound like my creepy truant officer, Webhead." Now gas from his boots? Is there no end to this goofball's gimmickry? A few more gadgets and he could give lessons to the Tinkerer. Still, I suppose I ought to be grateful to him for spicing up a lackluster evening. He makes a good point here. Like, they can hypnotize all the people and get them to give away all of their money. Why does he have boots that have blades in them? Like, he had to steal money to start his plans, right? He stole from the safe at the disco. But he already had enough money for this custom-made suit with blades and poison gas in it. Why doesn't he just have a gun or a knife or something like that? Or nothing. Like, why does he need a weapon if he just hypnotizes people? It didn't work here, but there's no evidence that it's ever not worked before. He could have a taser and he would be just as good. But because comic books, he's got retractable foot blades and foot gas. Let's keep going. Swak. Ugh, I deserve that one for not paying attention. Now I know what a baseball feels like when Reggie Jackson comes to the plate. And there go the boot blades again. Guess he's run out of tricks. What does it take to finish you? I assume he's asking what it takes to finish me. Judging from his over-my-shoulder stare, I'll bet he's called his reserves into the act. Yep, the Mercy Killer's lips are moving. But with my ears plugged, I'm not affected by their hypnotic crooning one bit. But Wonder Boy here can't figure that out. And what he can't figure makes him mad. Tsk, when will these pikers learn that anger only clouds their judgment? Huh? What do you think you're... Setting them out for the simplest of maneuvers. Hold still, you blasted jumpin' jack. Like this one. What in... Oh no! Not my headphones! Bingo. Bereft of his protective earphones, the Hustler is left wide open to the mesmerizing song of his own compatriots in crime, the Mercy Killers. And the effect is both intriguing to our wall-crawling observer and instantaneous. He's zonked. Without his ear gear, he's as susceptible as anyone else to the MK's siren song. But they're still under the influence of his hypnotic lenses. As long as they go on singing, everyone here will stay in lullaby land, which gives me an idea. We'll see his idea in a second. But yeah, so I wanted to clarify what his powers were at the beginning, and I paid extra attention this time. So he has his hypnotic lenses and he makes hypnotic music, right? Because he's a performer, he's got his guitar, he's playing hypnotic music. And the backup singers complement that. So their tones work with his music, and my assumption was they make him more powerful, but they're not actively doing the hypnotizing. It's everyone together does it. And yet Spider-Man takes off his headphones and he's hypnotized by the singers. Why don't they stop singing at that point, right? Like, they're a team, they're people. They kind of look like they're also hypnotized in the story, but like they're his crew. And so when his earphones come off, they just keep singing and hypnotize him. I'm not sure. Like, the ending of the fight here, it just didn't make any sense. I feel like they could have come up with something a little bit better, but yeah, that's what it was. And so mere moments later, oh, hey, what happened? I feel like I've been asleep. Me too. Who turned off the music? Look, it's the Mercy Killers with their mouths webbed shut. Spider-Man, but why? I seem to remember their singing entranced us, and my purse is gone. All our valuables are piled on the stage, Betty, and look, up on the globe. It's the Hypno Hustler, but sure, now it makes sense. He must have hypnotized us in order to rob us, and Spidey saved the day. And since no one but me remembers otherwise, I'm betting they buy it all the way. Gee, I guess we better call a cop. Next, Carrion, my wayward son. We may get into that next issue some other time. I have not read it yet, but based on that pun right there, I feel like it's probably going to be pretty good. So yeah, again, Peter Parker has changed clothes and just rejoined everyone without anyone noticing. Like, he stops all the bad guys, so the hypnotism ends, but in the time it wears off, he's able to get changed again, and no one notices. Okay, so what happened in this issue? There is a disco performer. He is making a name for himself in the hottest club. It's hard to get in there. You got to dress up real nice in your white tux. He's probably making some decent money, although maybe he's not, because when he talked to the owner, he said, I've been paying your bills or paying your expenses and, building your career or something like that. So maybe he's just like paying his expenses, like he's literally buying food for him and giving him exposure. That's probably what's happening here. So he's not getting paid well despite working at the most amazing disco in the world. So he accidentally figures out how to hypnotize people, and then he starts to steal all of their stuff. Not the worst story. It's not a Green Lantern villain level story where stuff just happens. He can't turn things into gold and uses his power to steal gold, so that's a big step up. But it was ridiculous, and it was a big slice of that time period. You can't write that story now. Peter Parker is not going to go to the disco, and the glittering disco ball is going to be used to hypnotize people. But like I mentioned, I'm pretty sure all of this stuff is still canon and still happened, at least when they want it to have happened. That's the worst thing about comics. But anyway, that's it for this time. If you want to see more ridiculous stories, make sure you subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Thanks for watching.